on the first evidence, right? And I hope that that even though you have all of the instructions right there in Canvas, and that we created everything that we expect you guys need for it to be clear as possible. But I still know I know that that questions can happen. That we might get to maybe some of you might have some ideas, maybe, or maybe you're here because you want to hear out of your teacher, what am I supposed to be doing for this first evidence, and whatever reason you're here for. I appreciate the fact that you're taking some minutes for today's session. Can you guys hear me all right, or is the mic kind of low?
Yes, perfectly.
All right, that's great. So let's try to just connect it quickly with some of the topics that we have been previously, touched upon. And when we talk about consumption, when we talk about overall as consumers under climate change, and also economic systems as when we understand them as production sort of machines or systems that create all of these types of objects that we might think that we need, or some of them we really need, some of them we might even ask ourselves, why in the world is this thing existing? What's the whole purpose of it? Why would anyone buy this thing, right? So all of these kind of life that we have created, where products are everywhere and they're just a click afar from us, well, of course they have contributed to being part of the problem, right? And with it, there must come a reflection on the type of consumption that we all should have, but also what type of objects, what type of of things that I need are gonna contribute the less when it comes to climate change, right? How am I making sure that my consumption decisions are the right ones? That's basically the question behind this topic, right? Sadly, as you will see, companies have noticed that you guys and some other generations are really interested not on companies that are contributing to climate change or any type of environmental crisis, but we are looking into which ones are taking the right decision. And I say sadly because what's been happening mostly when we see green products or environmentally friendly products, eco products, all of these elements that we immediately associate them, just like the image that we're looking at right now. This green color, these natural elements in the product themselves. Well, are they really green? Or are they just kind of, colored green? So what's the real deal about greenwashing? What's the real deal about the product that I'm gonna be deciding over some other, right? And that is why, um, taking this as a context, companies have noticed our intentions, but they are also creating some type of products that allegedly are green or ecological. And the question is, are they really? So that's basically, the main idea behind you guys working on this first evidence, for you to become critical next time you go and visit the supermarket, and whenever you are choosing over some products that you might be like, I know that if I keep on buying this, I'm making this particular environmental crisis even more possible to keep on existing. But I have this alternative. But is this the best decision that I can make? And and that is the reasoning again behind this first evidence, that we want you guys to develop that critical thinking in such a way that you know how to make the right decision, or at least how to identify when a company is using greenwashing to try to make their product green, right? So what I have in mind for this session is basically these 4 elements. First, we'll talk about the general elements, and then we're gonna go into the 10 questions that you're gonna see on the description of this first evidence. Um, so the first things that we have to talk about, is just these formal elements that I would like everyone just to have in mind. So this is a sort of a report, so that means that you have to do a written text where you will have to upload a document on Illumin using PDF if you can. We ask you this specifically because Illumin seems to be like really friendly when it comes to PDF versus any type of word processing system such as Docs or even Pages from Mac, right? The other element that is really important is we are asking you guys to use the app assistant. So please, whenever you are, paraphrasing, whenever you're quoting something, it's really important that you use this app assistant. Okay. Now, um, another important element regarding these 5 pages is this is this a requirement? It will depend on the type of work that you do. On average, I'll think that maybe a document from 4 to 6 pages it's okay. I have had maybe works of 3 pages, but that was like a really specific activity, and I'm saying 5 pages without counting the first basic information, your personal information page, nor the references. So it's just the text of your analysis. You're gonna see in a couple of minutes why this is the case. But we've also had some students, really committing into analyzing a campaign and even turning in, documents of more than 10 pages long. So, but this is however you feel it suits better your, also your times, because we know that everyone has stuff to do on their own, right? Okay, so these are like the most general formal elements. If anyone has any questions about it, I mean, you can also please write your questions on the chat, or even just open up your mic and I'll totally listen and reply to you back. Okay. Now, I think
Sorry,
it's really
teacher, I
important.
have a question.
Yes, yes.
There are 5 pages minimum.
Let's
Well,
say that it will really depend on your activity, but take 4 to be maybe the minimum pages. If I'm honest, I think it's really important that you check this with your professor, with your assigned professor, whether that's me or maybe Mario Giovanni or Paola Thompson. But I'd say 4 to 5 pages could be like the average.
okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks, Alfonso.
Hi, teacher. I have a question.
Yeah,
Like the campaign that I selected was like pl planet or plastic about um plastic pollution that was made by National Geographic. That campaign can be analyzed.
that's a really, really great question. And the straight answer is yes, you can do it, but it's gonna be somewhat different. And I'm getting ahead of myself, but what I'm trying to say is that this activity is mainly focused for you guys to look upon, products that companies are in a way trying to position in your mind, in your consumer's mind, right? But I know that these 2 words of environmental campaign, we kind of immediately associated with campaigns by Greenpeace, WWF, National Geographic, as you just stated, and and sometimes when we look at such campaigns, they also fall into greenwashing, because at the end of the day, it's not it's not necessary that National Geographic is the one who's creating the videos, or Greenpeace, or the WWF. Sometimes they are marketing agencies that create all of this multimedia, and the National Geographic could put their trust on a marketing agency without knowing that they are using greenwashing, right? So that could also happen. And that's to say that yes, you can do it, but it's going to be a little bit different in some particular questions. But don't worry, stick around, and I'll be as specific as I can, taking this variable into consideration.
Mr. I have another question.
Okay,
Yes.
thank
Go ahead, Mauricio.
I also thought that the environmental campaign, it was about like a campaign that helps reduce plastic, not a campaign like Coca-Cola that is trying to make their products look not bad.
Mm-hmm.
What if I do like that campaign and it does not have greenwashing, or should I change it, or what do I do?
That was gonna be like the other important thing, yes, and that is true. If it does not use greenwashing, in what you will be analyzing is whether the campaign by itself is significant, and because we're one of the key questions of this work is, I think it's question 5, if I'm not mistaken, where you have to make that value assessment of, okay, so this campaign, maybe it's not using greenwashing, but it's still not enough to make a big change in plastic
Right.
pollution, for instance. Okay, so I'd say you can still use it, but then the other difficulty will be, instead of you showing how does greenwashing appears, you're going to have to show how it doesn't, right?
Okay.
So, with that being said, let me just be practical. In this respect, you would have to take like images or screenshots if you're using a particular video, and showing how there's no greenwashing in any of it. Maybe screenshots also from the website, from, I don't know, tweets, videos on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, whatever the campaign is at, right? But that would be the other difference. You will have to defend that point that they're not using greenwashing. And how could you do it? By showing us this is an
Okay.
image. As you can see, they're not using this and this and this, which would be this type of greenwashing. Mhm.
And if they're not using greenwashing, can I try to mention how they're helping stop other companies use it?
If that's part of the campaign, yes. And because maybe they're not purposely trying to make that point, but I'm not sure which campaign are you talking about. But maybe you could say, if they are not like, just so straightforward, like, I guess what I'm saying is, you can use it as an example of how could you create a company that does not fall into greenwashing.
Okay.
Mhm. But we're gonna see specifically in which question, which it should be question number 3.
Yes, yes. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mauricio. That was a great question also. All right. All right. So let's just try to be as fast as we can, because I'm hearing that you have very specific questions and I'm loving it. I think this is another important idea. So when you look at the first evidence, and if you see like 10 points and you feel like it's too much, sometimes it helps to kind of break up, all of these, or, put these 10 questions in categories, right? So what I try to visualize whenever I'm, even when I'm grading your evidences is, okay, so there are 3 parts of this evidence, and the first one has to do with documenting or putting the reader in context, right? And in here, it's going to be really important that you put everything that we need about the campaign and the company. On part 2, it's where you're making a value assessment of whether, with everything that you've already covered on the context part, is it that this campaign, is this campaign worth it? Are they using selectivism, or is this campaign effective and or harmful? And lastly, on this third part, it's more about what could you propose, right? So I tend to, divide the first evidence in this particular order, and the first part then would be what, maybe the most analytical or contextual part of the evidence, and it's gonna have to cover question number 1 up to question number 2 or 3, depending on how you see it. But here's the first point that we already kind of solved. So the reading on Canvas says, investigate an environmental campaign that seeks to convey a message of action. And I think that it is because of these two elements, that one I bolded and the other one I underlined it, that I think that could be what makes you immediately associated with campaigns such as National Geographic and the like, right? The reason why we are using this description is because when you guys look into marketing, you're gonna see we're gonna see in a couple of seconds, 2 different types of message of actions that could be conveyed on their marketing, right? So the first thing that I just wanted to cover, if anyone's watching this video, or any of you has any specific questions about what could be an example of a campaign or a commercial. Well, commercials are basically video ads, those commercials that we see on YouTube or in any other part of, or online, or even on TV, if you're still using TVs, right? So this could be an example of a campaign, right? In this case, this is a campaign by Tesla that is named A Better Future, and this is just an example of something that you could use. So I would tend to immediately associate like campaign with what marketing does to position a message, a service, or a product of a company, or of an organization. Now, the thing that I was telling you is, how do marketing convey message of actions? What type of them are? I'm pretty sure there are more, but I think when it comes to our activity, you will see these particular 2 types. So the first one is, of course, the typical by me. So for instance, whenever you see all of these fast fashion companies that they have their own ads, where they're trying to position the idea, that we're sustainable. It's just about being mindful, to be aware of your actions. So you could choose us rather than some other fast fashion company, because we are making the right decision. And then of course they're using all of these natural elements or colors that we associate with nature, that kind of reminds us, or that where they are trying to make us connect that Pull and Bear in this particular case has a connection with nature, right? And because of such connection, it's the reason why we should buy them rather than some other company that isn't using this type of technology, right? So that's one way to look at commercials, when they are trying to tell you buy me rather than some other company that isn't doing what I am. Now, the other type of message of action that you could see is the type of commercials that they are trying to make, and in Spanish we say activaciones, or these type of activities where you are invited to participate in such a way that you are doing something for the environment. Let me give you just an example, right?
No entiendo, güey. En lo que levantas esa botella, allá están tirando otras 100.
Bueno, pero por lo menos estoy haciendo algo, ¿no?
Pendejo.
¿Cómo me dijiste?
Este verano queremos reclutar pendejos que crean que se puede limpiar los mares.
Que piensen que mejor que quejarse es intentar dejar un medio ambiente más sano para las futuras generaciones.
Que estén dispuestos a contarle a todo el mundo que lo son.
Por ahora solo somos Sprite y 5 pendejos que creemos que el mundo puede ser mejor que este. ¿Quieres ser el sexto?
Este verano refréscate con la nueva botella azul de Sprite, totalmente hecha de botellas recuperadas.
Y participa con nosotros en actividades voluntarias para limpiar cuerpos de agua.
No seas hater. Súmate en las redes de Sprite MX.
I'm sorry, give me a second while I go back to the presentation. But you know, the basic premise of this type of commercial is to show you guys that, you know, a company can also do things different, and we're inviting you to participate with these influencers and to gather in specific places so that you do something for, in this particular case, plastic pollution, right? And at the same time, and I think it's going to be mostly true with most of these type of companies, they are going to take the moment to also promote their products, right? So as you could see, you know, there is this narrative that is being constructed about this particular bad word, but they are trying to use that narrative just to say that you shouldn't think of yourself as that because you want to make things right. Even though you're gonna hear, you know, some people, haters, you know, give all of these arguments that it's ineffective, whatever you do, you should do something, right? And then, like, they take, where is it? Almost at the end, like maybe 5 seconds or less, where they tell you, oh, and by the way, our plastic bottles are now totally made of recovered bottles, right? So in a way, they're also promoting their products. So, but you know, the key point of this video is that you should think of Sprite as a company that wants to make things different. They are recognizing that they are part of the plastic pollution, so we're making you know, all of these activities in such a way that we recollect all of these plastic, right? And in some other class, I was talking with you know, with a student, and she was telling me that one of her family members was part of the creators of this marketing campaign, and she was telling me that when they were talking also about the plastic bottle, you know, they were thinking that to change the color because if you guys remember, I don't know if you guys are old enough, but you know, their plastic bottles used to be like really, really green, and you could see it like far, far away. And the main reason why they changed, you know, the plastic bottle to a transparent one was for you not to immediately associate Sprite plastic bottles on these particular spaces, because now you're seeing a transparent, you know, plastic bottle on the ocean. But that was just something rather interesting that we were talking on that particular session. Okay, so let's just not lose any more time. I think that it's also like really, really important that when you're choosing the campaign, you try to immediately question yourself, like, what is the environmental crisis that this campaign is trying to do something about? So, for example, the first one about Pull and Bear, it's about fast fashion and its contribution to climate change, right? And the second one is about plastic pollution. And I think it's really important that you have this on your mind since the first moment, because when you get to make the value judgment of, is this campaign like a game changer or not, you need to question yourself, is this campaign a game changer when it comes to plastic pollution? Like what they are doing, if everyone did it, maybe we wouldn't have plastic pollution. But you know, and it's really important that you have this on your mindset, because otherwise when you get to that particular point, it could be kind of hard, you know, to make the right assessment, I think, or the fair assessment, because you know, maybe the campaign is good enough to persuade people into recognizing their contribution, but are they really? Is that really all they could do? Like, for instance, Coke, is that everything that they could do, or what else could they do if they're the most polluted? You know, the company that pollutes the most when it comes to plastic pollution. So, you know, I wanted to tell you guys this since the beginning, so that whenever you're working on your campaign, that you are already thinking of it. And this first point, before moving into the second one, the second question, it's not really for you to write like a paragraph or something. but maybe just to like be clear, like on my first evidence, I'm gonna be talking about this campaign which was created by, and then maybe just give some images or the link to a video in there, right? So it's not really about describing that much compared to the following questions. But before we move into the second one, I wanted to ask any, if any else has a particular question about some campaigns that you might be looking into that you're not sure if they could be working or if they could work. Yes, Sandra, go ahead.
I have a question, but it's about the format of the report. It can be like question and answer, or it needs to be like introduction and like an essay.
Yeah, like a type of an essay. That's also a really good question that we didn't cover. I think both ways are right. If you work on an essay, however, try to make sure that you are answering like the 10 questions, because we've had some students that they turn in an essay, but maybe they missed out some questions. And I think that this is really important. If you work on an essay, and you want to be like really specific, or to tell us what you are working on that specific moment, what you could do is, you write your brief introduction, and then you kind of give us like subtopics, at the before each like each question each question could be a subtopic that you could enlist, like you answer the first one, and then you put, okay, context of the company, and at center, and then you move on to the next paragraph, you answer it, and then you move into the next one, which could be greenwashing analysis, for instance, again, center and whatnot. But you could also do the question and answer type, and I think that's also fine. At the end of the day, this activity is mostly about you guys answering everything so that you can make a fair value assessment, and then give a proposal at the end.
Perfect, thank you.
No problem. Anyone else? Does anyone have like a question of a campaign that maybe you want us to look at, or yeah, go ahead.
Yes, sorry if I'm repeating the question,
No, that's fine.
but I'm still kind of confused. I'm doing a campaign that is called Clean Seas Campaign, which comes from the United Nations Environmental Program. So obviously this campaign is dedicated to clean oceans. So I'm still confused if I can do that campaign or should I change it? Because if it's a campaign that comes from the United Nations and it is dedicated to help clean oceans, maybe it won't have what we're trying to look for, that greenwashing.
I think it could be, honestly, maybe a little bit easier, because as you just put it, you might be having this feeling throughout the, working on your analysis, because when we have campaigns by, even more so when it's from the UNEP, it's gonna be almost impossible for you to find greenwashing.
Yes.
Maybe what you could argue in a really critical way is whether that campaign is enough. It's whether the campaign could be a game changer, like.
Okay, I understand.
That could be like, if you decide to keep on working with that one, because you could do it, and we have some other students analyzing campaigns by the United Nations, and some of them have been good, but some others I've seen that's the main problem. But the main problem in that they feel that like they don't justify enough why is it that the campaign is good, right? So they're just like really straightforward. Like I didn't find, like I couldn't find any type of greenwashing, you know, just straightforward like that without making, you
Sure.
know,
Yeah.
like here's an image of the campaign. As you can see, this is the image that maybe was closest to committing greenwashing, but because of this and this and this, it's not this particular green, for instance, Green Bay Association, because in this sense they're not associating you know, any type of product or service. They're
Ah,
using nature because it's important that we blah 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 blah.
yes. Okay. Perfect. Okay. Thank you.
I think that's something that you could do. All right. Hope it helps, Mauricio. And if not, you know, you can send us a message, and we'll love to help you with your analysis as well.
Thank you. Yes, it's because I advanced it a lot, and I don't want to do it all over again. So
Yeah, makes
I
sense.
think it's good, and I think I can find a way to demonstrate how they're not good enough or they are, etc.
Okay. All right. All right. Then let's keep on moving forward. Um, So the second part, it's about I think this is the key part when it comes to context. You know, like trying to show what's the objective of the campaign, what is the specific action that they're proposing, and like I was telling you before, some marketing campaigns are like they are suggesting to the consumer that we should buy or that they should buy their product. Um, um, rather than some other product, right? So, or they are suggesting that people, you know, participate on these type of activations so that, you know, we make a difference when it comes to plastic pollution. Now, the other element that says who they are involving and who it is aimed at, it has to do with how some marketing campaigns, you know, they are telling people that maybe, for instance, United Nations is in collaboration with Fridays for Future, for instance. I'm not saying that's the case, right? But maybe, for instance, Adidas has some campaigns where they are trying to tell people that their latest, you know, tennis shoes that were made in collaboration with Parley or for yes, with Parley, I mean, you know, and that's where you would have to tell us in your analysis. So I'm analyzing this marketing campaign by Adidas that has these specific objectives, and they're proposing this. And to make the product, they collaborated with Parley, which is a company that, and you also give us a little bit of context of that company. And the last part of it, that who it is aimed at, this has to do with, you know, when a marketing agency is creating a video or a communications department is creating a video, for instance, on the case of United Nations, they they want to have like a target audience in their mind, right? Because they can create a video for every type of consumer that is out there. So if it is really obvious, so for instance, maybe they are using specific influencers that not everyone knows. Maybe they're using influencers from a particular region because the video is for those living in, let's say, Zacatecas. Then you could say something like that. So this video it was created for Gen Z consumers in Zacatecas, something like that. But this is more of an optional element because we know that it's not, you know, it's not really obvious in some videos. But if you can see it, I think that would be like also an interesting element to add, right? But if I give you any, you know, some pointers, like if you're looking about the objective, we immediately find them on the website of the company, or if they have a website of the product or service, you will find it in there. Sometimes they also put like their proposals on the website and the regs, right? But to me, maybe it's not listed there, but if you are already working on this perspective, because I've seen it happening also, I think it's important that we also research a little bit about what's the history, if there is any history of a company with any type of environmental crisis. So for instance, Coca-Cola, right? We know that there is a lot of history when it comes to plastic pollution, and they have all of these big targets and everything, and they want to commit with them. But it's important that we also put our readers, in this particular context. So if this is the case, if you find like a particular product that in a way has a history when it comes to environmental crisis, or maybe in the case of Mauricio, for instance, that you're talking about ONEP, I think this is something that you could kind of omit, because that's their key goal, right? To talk about the climate change and any type of environmental crisis. I think that's kind of obvious. But in some other, I think it would be like really helpful to kind of, if you feel that there is something like important, for instance, you're talking about British Petroleum, my God, there's a lot of history in there, right? So you could just, look into an article that kind of highlights some of those elements, and, take some quotes of it, and then the reader and you will have enough information to keep on moving forward, right? Because the third question, and you can stop me, of course, at any time. But the third question, I want you guys and girls to immediately associate it with greenwashing analysis. And I'm telling you this because I know that when it comes to types of argument, discourses, context, intentions, and ideologies, they seem like a lot. And the first thing, it's not about answering for each of them, right? It's not that you should analyze, okay, they're using this type of argument, they're using this type of discourses, they're using also this type of context, these intentions and these ideologies. I think if you analyze whether they are using greenwashing in here, it works, right? If you analyze with the ethos, pathos, and logos conceptual analysis, it could also work. But it would be, of course, really important that you include the references to these concepts, right? So that's why it's really important, to just look really fast, like what is greenwashing. So as we know, again, companies are capitalizing on some sustainability, as we say in Mexico, right? Like los trenes de la sostenibilidad. This idea of seeing that there is a trend and people, getting along with it. So a lot of companies, of course, are creating all of these products that, using different types of strategies that they are trying to make this association of eco, biodegradable, and all of these elements. And the thing with greenwashing is that it's not that they are just creating products, at least, some companies that are allegedly green, but that sometimes they do it to misdirect, to put your attention into something else that it's not. For instance, in this case, Nestle, they are now creating this bottle plastic, but they are still extracting billions of gallons of bottled water that is affecting communities and ecosystems. Or Coca-Cola, for instance, they are now, using plastic bottles, but they are putting communities in Oaxaca at risk because they are taking most of the water, and people in Chiapas, they not all communities have access to it, right? So with greenwashing, what we want to see is how companies are making us feel that, by taking a particular consumer decision, that we are taking the right environmental decisions, that they are the right ones, that they are enough, but also that they are fair. And the greenwashing it's really complex. We'll see also like the different types of strategies, but this is just to remind you that companies are noticing that there are consumers that care about the environment. Not only that, but that we are willing to even pay a high price, to acquire, to buy these products, right? So they even use this idea of a green consumer. And I think it's really important that we also question whether we should be the ones paying this different type of price, this high price, because like if I'm honest, when it comes to the consumer's decision, I think that if we really want people to make the right decision, we also need to talk about prices, right? Because and especially when you live in a country such as ours, where economical differences are everywhere, we need to make these products that are the right ones for environments also reachable for every class in our country. And this is just a comment on this particular element of greenwashing, because I think it's really important that we also consider greenwashing to be a political problem. It's making us feel it's creating a particular consumer type that should consume with higher prices, when these alternatives should be reachable for anyone who for everyone, so that the plastic pollution, for instance, it's not only for those who can pay a higher price, if that was the case. Or in the case of these images by H&M, for instance, that we see a regular type of t-shirt that is just 129 pesos versus almost the price double, because this is a conscious choice. This is again the question of why should you be the one paying for the price that H&M is putting, when they are the ones who are polluting, right? I think that should be like the question, but that's a topic that we could talk in some other session. But on this particular third point, again, this is where you could use the 9 types of greenwashing, and they come from what I wanted to share with you is that first, on Canvas, if you already studied this particular session or moment or learn about, you will see probably this reading by Building Green, and in here they have like the 9 type of greenwashings that exist, right? And just think of them as types of fallacies, for instance, that you have to look into the specific context, and then make an argument like, okay, so Coca-Cola or Fiji Water on their marketing video for this type of campaign, they are using a plastic bottle that is filled with grass, where you could see the ocean and everything. And this reminds me of green by association, because Terra Choice describes it and then you put the reference in there, and then that's how you should describe what type of greenwashing is on the campaign. But I also wanted to remind you guys that on Canvas you have this Genially, where what we wanted to do is to kind of go a little bit deeper on each one, and maybe give you also some other examples that you could take into consideration, and some description on why this particular image, for instance, is green by association, and some others that I'm gonna check this one out. Maybe they just changed the video configurations. All right. So, and lastly, the other thing is, if you have maybe a question when it comes also to language, because that could be also part of it. I recently wrote an article for the blog de Sostenibilidad here at Tech, and let me give you the link to it. And in there, I was also talking about the different types of greenwashing, using that same Terra Choice reference. And in here you will see, another type of description, and some other examples that could be maybe helpful. And lastly, in here, I also added, just a game or another Genially that you could use to kind of practice also if you want, right? So you will see different types of greenwashing. Some of them you might know them, but some of them are not the same one, right? So I hope that, maybe this article also helps you look into it. Now, the other types of like I was telling you, you could, on point number 3, you could do an analysis of whether they are types of greenwashing, but also the ethos, pathos, and logos conceptual analysis. And ethos, pathos, and logos, what you would do is, it's about thinking about how these concepts appear on the video, right? So ethos is about how is, first and foremost, who is appearing on the video, right? Maybe, for instance, you have an ad by Mercedes-Benz where Tom Holland is there, right? And one of the things that they want to associate is that Mercedes-Benz could be like Tom Holland, as cool, maybe as heroic, or however you want to put it. But there is this question of who is appearing on the video. Another example could be an Apple ad where they're putting a baby in a really, really deep voice that is kind of whispering to this baby, talking about Apple's commitment to the environment. And in here you could be like, okay, so the video is clearly it's about Apple, of course, but they are using a sort of father and son relationship where the father, who is transmitting Apple's message, is whispering because it wants to create like this intimate type of relationship that Apple has with its consumer, and it also wants you to feel like trust in it. So as you can see, it's about making some sort of analysis of why are they using some elements in the video. And for instance, when we look at classic images such as Uncle Sam is the medium to represent the US military service. And what you could do in an ethos analysis is then to ask, who is Uncle Sam and what kind of moral qualifications of moral elements is trying to transmit to its consumers. So it's about, nationalism. It's about this feeling of being part of something big. It's about making you feel important because when you make the decision to join, the U.S. military. However, maybe in recent times, maybe we are already beginning to change the meaning to it, right? So that could also be the case. Now, the next part about pathos is about how is it that on some marketing campaigns, they create emotions, right? And this is something really interesting if you are, of the type of trying to show that, maybe again with this ad by Apple, they want the consumer to feel that family type of relationship, and because they want you to feel safe as you would do with your family, and that's why they are using someone who is whispering, and because they want you to think that maybe Apple is like your father, who's trying to calm you when it comes to all of these environmental crises. That's why the background music is kind of soft, and even the colors, maybe they are cool colors rather than really strong and vivid colors. How and this could be like examples of how they are achieving it, right? You maybe asking yourself, why are they using a baby? Because such and such and such, because they represent dignity, they also represent naivety, and we could keep on purity, also pure happiness, and the rest. And logos is just as it's about the text, right? So when it comes to any type of ad, whether they're video or images, they have text in there, most of them. And if they don't have text, they have dialogues. So with logos, it's about analyzing what is the textual information that they are sharing, right? So what would be sometimes we could also think of it as, what is the argument behind this particular ad? In this case, it's really just straightforward, right? That if we want to control cancer, we should have early diagnosis, because that implies early treatment, and and that could mean that your life could be saved if you are on this particular problem. All right, so that would be for the ethos, pathos, and logos, which is an alternative that you could have for this question. But I don't know if any of you has any questions so far before we move on to the next one. All right. All right, that's great. I mean, you guys have that the identification quiz that again it should be configured for you guys to have 999 attempts, because at the end of the day it's about you guys practicing this identification competency, right? Because it is needed for you to develop this critical thinking. So if you have any questions also about the answers, we are open to hear you out. I know that it's, if I'm honest, like it's not that one environmental campaign just has one type of greenwashing. Sometimes they will have even more, and if you find that that's the case for a particular question, I'm all open to hear it from you. So, and we could also change the grade, so that's also fine. But let's keep on moving forward because I don't want to we are already at 4 p.m. Now I know that this next question is also kind of confusing, particularly when it comes to media discourses. What are they, and what is this idea of different interlocutors, right? So in this particular point, I'd like to take a moment and tell you guys that these are the two alternatives that I really, really recommend you. So what you could do is, for instance, if you have a company that is creating a product and they are trying to promote it with a marketing video that uses greenwashing or maybe not, on this particular point, you could research about another type of company that is doing something similar. So you selected H&M. You could compare it with some other fast fashion brand that maybe it's not owned by Inditex, by the way, because they will tend to use the same type of technology. But maybe also when it comes to other brands such as Coca-Cola, maybe Windex, Adidas, what are their competitors, right? Are they doing something similar? And then on here, I would suggest that you kind of look into the context of the company, of their product, and then compare it. This would be looking into how are they similar and how are they different. And with this analysis, what you will earn, or we hope you do, is maybe you will have insights such as, I really thought that they were doing things different, but now that I look at this other campaign, I think now that they're not, right? And or maybe you would be like on the other side of the table, like, okay, so I thought that people were gonna do things better, but it seems like they're not. Okay, we should maybe applaud this company because they're doing things not enough maybe, but they are moving forward, right? So those are the types of insights that we hope you get by comparing with some other type of company that does something similar, right? In the case of, for instance, UNEP, in here you could do, or any other type of organization, you could compare it with some other maybe Greenpeace, maybe National Geographic, maybe WWF, and see whether trying to look into the same problem of ocean pollution, for instance, whether one campaign or the other has some similar something similar, or maybe some differences that make you think all as well, like one is doing something better than the other, and how, right? The other alternative that you could take, because it is true that sometimes you will select some campaigns that they don't have other competitors. So what else could you do? So what you could do is look for critical articles that are analyzing either the campaign or the product. And for instance, I remember that I was looking a couple of years ago at how, after I saw this whole partnership between Adidas and Parley, but I saw different types of articles where they were like critically analyzing both the products, every information that Adidas had of the product, and they were trying to make the case that at the end of the day, Adidas product isn't really sustainable. And it's about finding articles that are trying to do a critical analysis. And with this, I'm not generalizing and saying that every critical analyzing is about desmentir, right? About disproving. It could be the whole opposite. Like maybe you find an article that is making the case that it is really sustainable, and you think that the article is just like really good at it. So what you could do is take the best arguments, quote them in your article, on your text, and add something to the discussion, right? Again, if whatever alternative you choose for this question, it's about getting this insight of, okay, so maybe the campaign is not really good. Maybe it is. Maybe I'm finding out that uh, maybe with this article that I'm reading, I never saw this on their website, and now I can make sense out of it. It's about that. It's about getting more insight, because the next question is gonna be about making that value assessment. But before we move into that particular question, I don't know, anyone has any questions so far, or should we keep on moving forward? All right. So then let's keep on moving forward. So this would be the end of the first part, which again, it's about making an analysis, making a context, creating a context. Because on the next part, and we're gonna move now a little bit faster, we have to analyze whether the proposed action that the campaign, is giving you guys, is it really significant? Is it false? Is it relevant? And this is where I think it's important that we look into these three categories. They could be honestly like really subjective. Some people could say that a campaign, and we've seen it in some other classes, some other periods where students argue for that same campaign. Some argue that is false, some argue that is significant, some argue that it is irrelevant. And this is why I would like for you to consider these elements. So I think that a campaign could be significant when whatever they're proposing will definitely be the solution if everyone were to use it, right? So the fact that Adidas has this type of product, and now maybe you found out that although they are using recycled plastic, it's still just a really minimum percentage of the product. Is it really significant then? If everyone did this, would we make a really big difference? And you could say, I mean, yes, we are putting less plastic in our oceans, but we are still putting plastic and creating virgin plastic, which we need petroleum in order to create this virgin plastic. So at the end of the day, this could be false, because it's still harming more than one could hope so, right? So it's about, in some situations, maybe some technical elements in there. But if you have any questions about this, of course, we'll love to help you. Irrelevant, it's when you see a product that, yes, they are doing things like different, but maybe if they were doing this with every type of product that they own or that they are selling, I mean, things could be really different, because maybe the conscious choice by H&M is just 10% of the 100 of the production, right? So or maybe it's 40 versus 50, because each year they're allegedly increasing their conscious line, right? So it could be on that irrelevant, right? So they're doing things right, but it's still not making a difference, right? And false is when it's definitely not making a difference and it's harming our environment directly, such as fossil fuel industries, of course, or plastic pollution when it comes to Coca-Cola and the like. So I really suggest that you guys look into these three categories: significant, when, definitely, if every company that is on the same categories, such as maybe tennis shoes, maybe drinking beverages or whatever. If everyone did what this company is trying to do, then the world would be different. That's significant. It's irrelevant when, yes, but there is something in the campaign or maybe the context of the company that it's still not making a big difference. It's the right product, but the company is still doing something. Or maybe the product isn't really enough. It's getting there, but it's not enough. And the whole opposite when it comes to this falseness in the product. So this particular moment, for instance, when you're analyzing organizations, I think that this is where we're gonna see how marketing strategies are not enough, right? But maybe marketing strategies, for instance, when they are just transmitting a message, maybe they will inspire people, but when? And maybe I don't know, it would really depend on the type of campaigns, right? But I think what I'm trying to say is that when it comes to organizations, to NGOs, we expect them to kind of guide us in the right direction, and some will do, some will not. Some, what they are asking us to do is kind of irrelevant, and sometimes they're going to be completely false. But I think that when it comes to NGOs, you're going to see that they are mostly connected with the significant or irrelevant category. But that will be up to you, and this is a strong moment where you're going to show us your critical competency, your critical thinking competency, because you will have to justify it. It's not about just saying it's significant and move forward. You have to justify how is it significant, and maybe you will have to take back some arguments that you, or some key descriptions that you found on the previous points or parts of the campaign, right? Of the particular essay evidence. Does anyone has any questions about this part? And if you wanna, save or look for these three categories, you're gonna find a brief condensation of this presentation on a learn about in this week. I think it was learn about evidence one, something like that, and that's where you will find it as well. Okay, so that's just for you to not to feel the pressure of making all of those notes, right? All right, so then let's keep on moving forward. Now it's time that we look into how some companies also use social media, and they use this strategy known as slacktivism, right? So on this particular question, now we are assessing people's reaction on social media. And here, it's really important that we also remember what is slacktivism. So slacktivism, it's about, it's I think it's something like really easy to grasp, and it makes even more sense when we think of this type of publications on social media, like share these videos so that that we help people in Africa. Click here to donate. People that are starving in this particular region in Ethiopia, for instance. So it's this act that makes us feel that we're supporting a cause by doing something really, really simple, but without making, without actually making the case that you're doing things different. And in this particular examples, you will see a lot this idea of clicking, right? And that is why selectivism is also known as clicktivism. It's about liking, it's about sharing, um, it's about making people feel good that whatever they are doing is the right thing. It's about whenever you see these change.org websites, for instance, that they ask you to sign them, and then you don't find out at the end of the day what on earth happened with that signature that you just give. That's about selectivism. It's about actions that make us feel good and that at the end of the day, they maybe don't have that big of an effect, right? And it's really important that we look into these type of activities because they are created so that people don't think that they have to look into different types of, let's say in using our language, it's created in such a way that we avoid taking some other citizen dimension actions that we looked in our class. It's about low cost efforts. It's about making the less effort that you can to help, a particular problem, right? And in here you will have on this particular question, what you're going to have to do is go, for instance, on Facebook. If you found the campaign, maybe being shared in Facebook, and then look at the text, or maybe look at the video. Are they asking you to like, to subscribe, to share? Are they asking you to sign any type of change that are website? And also try to see like the comments of people. I think this exercise is also like really interesting. When you go in there and read the reaction, like, are people really, if you see that they are using selectivism, are they really like, yeah, totally, I'm gonna share it, and I totally trust in you, and you can bring in some screenshots of that. If, however, your campaign never had any type of social media interaction, I would ask you to I mean, just to be straightforward like that. I looked into TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitch, YouTube, and I couldn't find any, this particular campaign on social media. Maybe they were, and I think this is another question that we didn't cover, but some campaigns could be like really old, and that's fair. You could use a really old campaign, or you could use a really recent campaign. My only suggestion on that respect is that try to make sure that you find enough information, and when it comes to volume, that there is a lot of information about that campaign, because otherwise it's going to be kind of complicated. Any questions on the selectivism part? All right. Now, these other questions could also be a little bit troublesome, maybe a little bit confusing. So this one, for instance, says, reflect on what elements of the campaign or initiative are being left out and should be included if what is sought is effective action. So this is, again, part of the evaluation section, because in here, we're asking you to look again at the campaign and identify what is it that if they would include it, if they would have done different, then maybe, the campaign would be on the right track, right? So sometimes it's about, the strategy, is the strategy that they use on the video. Maybe they have a really good product, but the video is really not appealing. So that's something that is being left out. And maybe they're not giving us clear information. Maybe they're just giving vague information about their products. So just these are things that are also being left out, right? Maybe as well, if you're analyzing an environmental campaign by an NGO, maybe you're looking that the activity that they are promoting to people is not surrounded by a strong argument, and how is it that if people participate, then things would be really different. And that's how they are missing out some elements that could be part of it, that would make it an effective campaign. My bad. And the last part, when it comes to the evaluation, this is a more of a general question. It's not really that much of your campaign, but in here, what we want to assess is, why do you think that this type of campaigns could be really effective in people, and what are the consequences that campaigns such as the one that you are analyzing, um, how could they harm people? So maybe, for instance, you are using the campaign by Sprite, and you could be like, well, I mean, this campaign is really, really effective when it comes into persuading people. Maybe the product is not the right one. It's still, creating plastic pollution. And that's why it's really, really harmful, because people really trust on these influencers, and the fact that they are using them to transmit the Sprite's message of action, which is harmful, is just gonna make the problem even worse. That's the type of conclusion that you could work if you wanna kind of make some general aspects, to make a general kind of conclusion based on your campaign. But you could also be like, whenever you see a campaign that is using greenwashing, it's gonna be, of course, bringing harm, depending on the type of campaign and also the type of product, because at the end of the day, they're not making the products that we need accessible to people, or we are just being flooded by so many options that people are not gonna know which is the right one, and we're still gonna have plastic pollution or any other type of environmental crisis. So this could be like some reflection questions. Is this campaign effective in making people believe in it? What consequences will it have if what they propose is false, which is kind of what we were thinking a couple of minutes ago. Okay. So we're getting into the last questions, but before we get into those, does anyone has a question about this section? All right, everyone. Then let's try to make this last portion, these last two questions. Let's try to give all of our attention to them. In here, we're gonna see now we're asking you to look into the big picture of the campaign and the problem that they are trying to address, and how is it that maybe the campaign isn't enough to solve the underlying problem. And that is why at the beginning of the session, I was telling you to immediately associate, okay, so this environmental campaign is trying to do something about their, CO2 emissions. Okay, now, whenever you come into this particular point, in this particular question, are they doing the right thing? Like, are they really diminishing their CO2 emissions with what they are asking us to do? And this is the element of the first part of this question, like, how in the sense of ethos, like, are they ethically doing the right thing? Are they really solving the underlying problem with what they are proposing, whether it's a product, a service? Are they being ethical by promoting such type of activity or product? Are ethical when it comes to, of course, solving the crisis? And in here, it's where we're gonna ask you to look into the big picture by then, connected with the second part of this question, which is, how could you include other actors so that we could make so that we could give another type of solution? So, for instance, plastic pollution. one of the key problems that these big companies face is that they can't control what the consumer does with the plastic bottles, right? And and maybe they have, you know, the best campaign out there. You know, maybe they are doing everything that they can. But at the end of the day, they can't control the consumer. They can control citizens, but maybe they can look and, you know, start negotiating with governments, with other companies to look for solutions so that the consumer has alternatives when it comes to recycling their plastic pollution, their plastic bottles, their plastic objects, right? And it would be here then you need to think, be how could the citizens be part of the solution? How could the government, how could companies, other companies, how could news media, you know, be also part of it? So, and you could, as you can see, we are making you think of another solution that could include the campaign, but now making it bigger, like including different types of actors that should be involved. And in here, you would have to describe, why do you think that citizens should be part of this problem? And you could be like, okay, well, citizens have a duty because at the end of the day, they are also responsible for what happens with that type of plastic. But of course, consumers and citizens might not be motivated because the authorities don't have you know, clear politics about you know, recycling facilities, or maybe they don't even have you know, people could separate their products at home, but when, you know, el basurero pasa, they're not really, you know, respecting that, and they're just putting everything together, and that's why people are not motivated enough. So maybe, you know, if the government did something different in that respect, and the media keep on pressing, you know, on authorities, using citizens' voice as well, then maybe we could have something different. So as you can see, again in here, what we're trying to do is look at different types of solutions that are in a way connected with the underlying problem that the environmental crisis is trying to make different, right, since the beginning. So it's about moving a step forward or back, having taken a step back and looking at the big picture and how different people could be involved and what would be the responsibility. Am I being clear on this one? Because I know that this is sometimes like the one that kind of is confusing in there. All right, because the last one, it's about, I like to think it this way. Let's say that now you are the director of a new campaign that wants to transmit the strategy that you were considering for the previous question, right? For this one, particularly the second part of it. So you have this strategy where you're arguing that the government should do this and news media could be involved by doing this and citizens could do their part, and such as companies. So what if you were to create a marketing video for that? How could you invite every actor, society to get involved in this proposal? What could you do? What type of video could you create? What text, and this is what I mean with logos, could you include? How could you create maybe an emotional message in such a way that people feel persuaded, but without being manipulated? Because, I mean, I think it's fair to say that we can't convince people by just giving them data. That's not enough. We need to appeal to their emotions as well, but we need to avoid manipulating people by, you know, using pathos. So I know that, of course, we're not. We know that not everyone is as creative as some might be, and what some things that you could do is try to research or find campaigns that are close to what you want to do, right? And then you could be like, so I think that if I could do something similar like this campaign that was created by where they are using this, but in our case we could change it for that. Then we could show this information and then use maybe in the same way that they are using kids in a respectful way without manipulating people, without appealing to purity and whatnot. But because it is their future that we're talking about and people need to have that association on their head, then just as I'm just gonna say some Fondo de Cultura did, then I think that my video could be something similar. So these two last questions are about how could you create a new type of video where you include a new type of strategy. Now, of course, we know that these proposals are going to be part of your creativity, but you also, it is here that you also need to look into what and that's why you were also looking at what was being left out. And what I'm trying to say is that try to not to think of it as something disconnected from the rest of the evidence. You can take information from this second part of the evaluation, for instance, that elements of the, you know, what are being left out. Maybe you saw that there's something really effective about the campaign that you selected, that you could take it into your campaign without manipulating, and or maybe without using selectivism. But yeah, this last part is about being creative, but also about think of different ways of transmitting messages without manipulating, such as maybe the campaign that you were analyzing. So with that, that would be everything that I had for this session. I don't know if by this point anyone has a particular question that we should look into, or maybe we could have your reaction to the activity itself. How are you feeling about it? What are your thoughts so far? And if there's no, I mean, no other question, I mean, I just want to thank you all for being part of this session. And of course, if you have any other questions, because I know that when you get to work on it, such as Mauricio was saying that he's already working on it, you're gonna find out, maybe you're gonna look into new questions that we didn't cover in the session, and it's fine. You can also send us a message through our WhatsApp group, or maybe you could also send a message to your assigned professor or even me directly. That's fine. We are here to help. So that would be everything for today's session. But before we go, Jaime, yes, how can I help you?
Hi, teacher. I have a question.
Mhm.
Are you gonna upload this presentation to Canvas or?
Yes, this presentation, and give me a sec and I'll give you the direct link to it. It should be already on a Learnabout, and if not,
Yes, it is.
I can give you
It's
the
in Learn About on Canvas.
all right. Yes, then it is.
Thank you, teacher. That was my question.
All right. Anyone else has a question?
I just want you to show you my campaign. If I let me share a screen. I can
Yeah,
share.
just give me a sec.
Yeah, thank you.
You should be able now. Okay, Jaime, I just shared you the link of the Learnabout where you're gonna find the slides, so you could also look into it in there. Okay.
Yes, thank you, teacher.
All right, and if anyone else, you know, needs to leave, I appreciate your time, and I'm wishing you the best of the best for this activity. I hope that, you know, you take the lesson out of the main lesson out of it, which is that we need to be really careful with our decisions, because companies, of course, they want us to consume them, but are they really the right product to consume? And that's the thing that you will have to answer in this activity. Okay. So thank you so much for joining, and I'm gonna stop, the recording here. But if anyone wants to stay and maybe talk, that's also fine. So thanks everyone.